Okay, we are about to start our second essay of the year, Analyzing Literature. We've read 6 myths, and each myth, there are characters that changed as a result of the actions of other characters and events in the story. In fact, that's really what myths are about. And through the characters' changes, how they changed, and the way they changed, the lessons were revealed to the audience. So you have 3 writing prompts to choose from. You're going to choose one. At the end of this lesson, you need to tell me by signing up which one of the prompts that you want to choose to write about. Okay, so the first prompt is the myths of Greece and Rome has similar lessons in them. Choose 2 myths that have a similar lesson and analyze how the lessons were revealed through the development of a character or characters in the myths. The second one is the myths of Greece and Rome often have the same gods or goddesses in them. Choose one god or goddess who affected characters in 2 different myths and analyze how that deity, and deity is just another word for god or goddess. It's gender neutral. Whereas God is specifically masculine and goddess is specifically feminine. So you would need to, if you don't know, I don't know which god or goddess you're going to choose. I don't know which deity you're going to choose. I have to say god or goddess. So deity is a way of avoiding that because deity is gender neutral. Okay. So analyze how the deity affected at least one character in each myth. And then the Greek and Roman gods and goddesses often interact with mortals in their myths. This is similar to the previous one. Do the gods and goddesses treat the mortals fairly? So you're going to choose one god or goddess who affected characters in 2 myths. But instead of just analyzing how they affected the character, you can take it a step further and analyze if they treated the mortal characters fairly and how they were affected in each myth. Okay? So you're going to use details or quotes from each myth to support your answer, which you need to introduce with an appropriate introductory answer, and then cite the quote following MLA guidelines. Okay? Okay, so the timeline for this assignment, so you are to choose your writing prompt, brainstorm, plan, and outline your essay using an organizer that I'm going to go over with you Tuesday, 3/16. You have until Thursday, the 18th to finish it. You want to start writing your first body paragraph, so that would be your response on one myth, analyzing one of the myths Thursday in class, and finishing for homework. You would write your second body paragraph, analyzing the second myth on Friday, and finishing for by Monday. So Monday you can write your introductory paragraph. You want to write your concluding paragraph and begin revising on Tuesday, edit on Wednesday, and then it is due before school starts on Thursday morning. Okay? So let's take a look at the 3 writing prompts and your brainstorming organizer. Okay? So if you're going to do essay writing prompt 1 on similar lessons, okay, so that's right here, similar lessons. Then you're going to need to think about which 2 myths you're going to use and what is the common lesson in the 2 myths. So that's where your chart that we filled in, the elements of myth chart, you can go back through and look at those lessons that were learned in the stories, right? And so that would be, you'd fill that in here. So then we're going to analyze the first of your 2 myths from up here. So the title of the myth again, which character reveals that lesson best? So, if it is to follow directions, right? Maybe it's Orpheus or Icarus, right? If it is, to make up for your sins, right? That might be Hercules or King Midas. And then what the lesson is that was learned, right? Following directions, doing as you're told, making up for mistakes, the things that you do that are wrong in life, right? Being respectful of others, There's many lessons that you could learn. And then you want to go on to describe how the character experiences a lesson, okay? So describe how the character was at the beginning. So if you're doing Orpheus or Icarus or Hercules or Midas or Echo or Narcissus, right? How are they at the beginning? Then you're going to highlight a quote in the myth and number it 1. Okay, I'm not making you recopy it into the organizer, but you definitely need a quote to support this. And then describe the events and the choice that the character made that revealed the lesson. So, like what happened to the character. So at the beginning of the story, Icarus was like this. Then, he didn't follow the directions and flew too high, right? And ended up in the sea. And then a quote that supports that. And then what happened, right? Well, he died. On the other hand, Hercules was made a god, right? Echo becomes an echo. Narcissus becomes a reflection. Midas gets rid of the golden touch, right? So it just depends on what you want to do. And then a quote that supports that. And then part B is really important. And that is explaining what the audience learns, right? So what is the lesson the audience is supposed to learn from the character's experience, right? So, maybe Echo, Narcissus, Icarus learned their lesson too late, but Hercules and Midas didn't learn their lesson too late, right? And so either way, the audience learns a lesson from it. And then you're analyzing the second myth the exact same way. Okay, so the title of the myth, the character that learned the lesson, what was the lesson, then describe the character at the beginning, find a quote and highlight it. What happened that shows the lesson, what choices were made that shows the lesson, and then you want to highlight that quote and then explain what happened to the character at the end, right, after they learned or failed to learn the lesson, right? So the resolution of the story. And then again, what the audience learns. So that's the first one on a similar lesson in the 2 myths, okay? The second writing prompt, of course, was how does a god or goddess affect other characters? And so which god or goddess you're going to use, there's a lot. Hera is in multiple myths. Hades in multiple myths. Zeus is in multiple myths. Dionysus is in multiple myths. Apollo is in multiple myths. So you could pick any of those characters, any god or goddess who shows up in more than one myth. Okay? And then which 2 myths are they in? Which 2 myths are you going to use? And what character in that myth is affected, right? So if you choose Hera, well, Hera affects Echo, Hera affects Hercules, right? So that would be myth 1 in the character, myth 2 in the character, right? If you're going to use Dionysus, right? Dionysus affects Orpheus, Dionysus affects King Midas, right? So it just depends on which character, but the character that's affected in the myth. And then we're going to analyze the first myth. So you're going to take your first myth and the character affected and the god. So the god Hades, the title of the first myth, Orpheus, great musician. The character affected is Orpheus, right? And then you're going to describe what action does the god or goddess take that affects the other characters. So you start off by what does the god or goddess do, right? Hades put a condition on letting Echo go, Eurydice go. And then find a quote. And then how does the character respond? Well, Orpheus didn't listen and he turned around, right? And so then what were the long-term effects, right? Because of the deity's action, right? Because of the condition, because of what Hades did, what happened. And then the B part is what, as the reader, do we learn from the effects of that action? And then you do your second myth, right? Hades affects Demeter. Hades affects Persephone. Hades affects the farmers, right? By taking Persephone, right? And that might be the action, right? He kidnaps Persephone. That makes Demeter really sad, and then that causes all the farmers to starve, right? And so you would do your second myth here. And then what does the reader learn from the effects of the deity's actions, right? To learn about the god, learn about the Greeks, learn about, how we can understand the Greek mythology. And then the third one is similar, but instead of looking at what we learn really about the gods or goddesses or ancient Greek life, it is analyzing whether or not the god or goddess is fair to the characters. So you pretty much start the same way. You pick a god or goddess that's in at least 2 myths, and then pick a myth that they're in and the character affected, and the second myth and the character affected, and then you're going to decide, was the god or goddess fair in their treatment of the mortal characters? And so, again, you start off with, the name of the god, the title of the myth, the character affected in that myth, and whether or not that was fair. And then you describe the action by the god or goddess, highlighting a quote. How does the character respond to that action by the god or goddess? What were the effects of that? But then B is different. B is why. Explain why the god's actions were fair or unfair. Okay? And then the same for the second myth. So those are your 3 choices. You need to sign up for one, and we will start actually filling this in tomorrow in class.